Hey everybody, welcome to the 100 Amazing Subscriber Special. Also, please welcome Truegreen7, or Ron, to this very special episode. Truegreen is a very popular Pokemon YouTuber and very graciously agreed to be in this video and react to my Fakemon today. Ron, how are we feeling about being here?
Cautiously excited, intrigued. I'm intrigued. I'm not intrigued yet.
Well, hey, that's not a horrible place to be. I'm just glad you're here, so thank you. It really means a lot to me. As I was prepping for my normal video, I saw that we passed 100 subscribers on Thursday. Well, last Thursday. And if you're watching this video later, that's meaningless. But we had 100 subscribers. Excellent. I decided to put some extra time into making this video so that it was twice as long and twice as spectacular as a normal video might be. You think the name is misleading? I really think you guys are amazing, though. You're saying that doesn't matter. Well, I'll think about it, but I'm probably not going to change the name. You really are amazing. I don't get why there's an issue. Anyways, let's just get to the Pokemon. Let's get to the Pokemon. Let's start with evolving Succulent. If you'll remember, this is our succulent Pokemon who lives on the edge of the Wentanoan Desert and in the dry areas of the region. It got its name because it will emit a sweet aroma after drinking, which has saved many people and Pokemon from thirst. Let's talk about how we can evolve not just this Pokemon, but the concepts that went into it. Specifically, I want to evolve this bright personality into a matron of the desert, who not just helps, but seeks out and saves those lost in the Wentanoan Desert. For Succulent's evolution, I wanted to create something that felt like it could maneuver through the desert quickly, almost at a full sprint or something like that. At the same time, it needed to stay a plant. I didn't want it to turn into an animal or anything like that. That's why I elected to elongate this Pokemon's legs and reduce their number to 2. That's right, those are actually legs, and we're going to get into why in a minute. Ideally, though, this Pokemon has quite a peppy and maybe overzealous nature, becoming so excited by the possibility of leading someone to the desert water. Here's the thing about that, though. Now that this Pokemon is solely focused on leading the thirsty to water, its over-eagerness, it doesn't really have a slow mode. It just runs at full sprint everywhere. In fact, if you're wary from your travels, many survival experts recommend not following this Pokemon to water, as chasing after it might only exhaust you further and could endanger your life. Instead, they recommend that you ask this Pokemon for the fruit that it carries around, as that can have a high water content and replenish you in that way. So, if you haven't figured it out, the lower part of this Pokemon's body is actually an edible fruit, just like cactus and other succulents grow. I know people might get worried about this, so for lore reasons, it's not painful for the fruit to be picked, and it can regrow quite quickly as long as this Pokemon can find water. In fact, I think a defining feature of this Pokemon would be its incredible memory, as it needs to be able to remember and locate all of the water sources within the desert so that it can lead thirsty people and Pokemon to them, as well as replenish itself when it needs to. Meet Mellowsweet, the cactus fruit Pokemon. Mellowsweet run around the Wentanoan deserts at top speed, searching for thirsty people and Pokemon that it can lead to water. Many survival experts recommend that if you're lost in the desert, not to follow Mellowsweet if you are experiencing extreme fatigue or thirst, as chasing after it may deplete your resources before you reach water. Instead, you should ask for the fruit that it grows and carries around, as a Mellowsweet's fruit can contain quite a bit of water itself. This fruit is also a delicacy in towns that border the desert, known for its sweet but diminished flavor. Ron, let us know what you think of this overall design.
Obviously, the art is fantastic. There's nothing to critique art-wise, and there's honestly nothing to critique Fakemon-wise. I don't even know if this is going to be in the video because there's nothing to critique, really.
Wow, that's high praise. I am so glad that you are definitely here to say all of that for yourself. As part of the 100 Amazing Subscriber Special, name is trademark pending by the way, we're going to evolve Mellowsweet right here, right now. Let's get into it. Mellowsweet is a well-meaning but somewhat careless and naive Pokemon in terms of how it tries to help those lost in the desert. At some point, though, it does realize that it needs to look behind it and make sure that those following it can keep up. As it learns to truly look after those it's trying to help, it would gain the ability to evolve. Upon its next visit to a water source within the desert, Mellowsweet decided to trade speed for the ability to carry large quantities of water around with them at all times in order to get people and Pokemon through the harsh deserts of Wentano. One thing that I've always thought was really cool about many succulents was that their specialized leaves are a lot more firm than the leaves we're used to seeing on bushes and trees. I thought it would be cool if this Pokemon used those leaves to create a water-type bowl shape at the bottom of its body that it could then carry water around in. Where once this Pokemon quickly rolled and then ran around the desert, now it isn't very fast at all, but instead wanders the desert from water source to water source hoping to find those in need. It uses its forearms or legs or tentacles, whatever you want to call them, to both move around but also to shade the pool of water below. Same with its now fully bloomed cactus flower on the head. It's not just a decorative piece, instead it helps provide shade for the pool of water to prevent evaporation. It does serve a secondary purpose as well though. Being pink and white, it acts as a beacon to those in need by being easily visible at great distances. In terms of other physiological features, you'll notice an increase in spiny needles compared to Mellowsweet. I imagine that this Pokemon's body has a high water content in all areas, so desperate people or even large Pokemon may try to consume its limbs or even the entire Pokemon when desperate for water. We don't want that to happen, so the thorns are how this Pokemon defends and protects both itself and the water that it carries around. Meet Oasint, the walking oasis Pokemon. Oasint carry large quantities of water with them as they travel through the deserts of Wintano, searching for people and Pokemon in need. Though not as fast as Mellowsweet, they are now much more efficient at helping people as it seeks them out. Many in the surrounding areas believe that when this Pokemon dies, a new oasis will be formed in their memory, as if the desert took kindly to their actions. Okay, Mr. Truegreen, how do you feel about this design?
This is rendered better than anything I can do. I would like to, the shading is really good here.
Great, thank you. What a good and very legitimate response. I really appreciate that. Next, we're going to unveil the second stage of our rock bug type Stagmite. A quick refresher, Stagmite is a cute little stalactite Pokemon, those are the ones on the ceiling, that crawls around in the caves of Wintano. It's meant to fill the role of both one of our primary regional bugs, but also an early rock type for you to add to your team. I do recognize that this is no longer a popular design convention, but I personally like how many of our bug Pokemon have second stages that are a cocoon or chrysalis or something like that. I think it really helps solidify their typing as not just bug-like, but in fact actual bugs, if that makes any sense. For this specific Pokemon, I think it's pretty straightforward. Instead of trying to overthink it, let's just give this Pokemon a cocoon made of stone that resembles a stalactite, and continues the theming already assigned to this line. It's a tricky balance though, ensuring that this Pokemon isn't just a stalactite with eyes, but also doing my best to make sure it still resembles its inspiration in a bug. Rather than add the complex lining that helps make things like Kakuna and Metapod stand out, I opted to give it exposed little leg nubs on all sides, as well as remnants of the pincer horns that Stagmite had on its head. As I was designing this Pokemon, I thought about whether it should be a stalagmite, those are the ones on the ground, instead of a stalactite, meaning that its spike would face upwards. I also considered making both a possibility, maybe in different regions it could take either form. In the end, I decided that it was best to just stick to a stalactite for now. For one, I didn't like the body plan that would come about if it was a stalagmite, and I wanted to make sure that we weren't getting too close to the crustal territory, even though that Pokemon's cube-shaped and this would be conical. Anyways, sticking to the ceiling felt right for this Pokemon, so I decided to stay away from stalagmites for now and push those to the final design. Meet Stactite, the stone cocoon Pokemon. These Pokemon resemble stalactites as they form a rocky cocoon that surrounds their bodies. They secrete a sticky substance from the top of their cocoon that they then use to stick themselves firmly to the ceilings of caves in Wintano, making it very difficult for predators to both find and remove them. They will absorb minerals from the moisture found in these caves, so they prefer damp and dank caves to dry ones. Okay, Ron, what do you think of this one?
It's weird, but it's good.
Well, thank you. That means a lot coming from someone as real as you are. Okay, moving on to our next evolution, how can we take Stactite to the next level, or rather, down a level, off the ceiling, out of the cocoon, into a new rocky form? If you didn't pick up on this from the starter Pokemon, I love beetles. All sorts of beetles. Little ones, big ones, fat ones, thin ones. All beetles are awesome. I particularly love beetles with funny-shaped abdomens. Now, I'm not sure how many of you know this, but a lot of your horned beetles' horns actually protrude from the abdomen. It's like having horns on your back. Anyways, it means that they aren't horns on the head and are much more immobile. Some beetles do use a combination though, and will have a mobile horn on the head and combined with the immobile ones on their backs, and they use this to pin down and fight opponents. For this Pokemon, I wanted to have as many stalactites and stalagmites on its body as possible, so I opted for this kind of carapace construction. In particular, I'm trying to emulate a rhinoceros beetle, which has one head horn and up to 5 abdomen horns that it can use for both defense and fighting. I opted for just 2 abdomen horns for visual clarity in this design, but I imagine that this Pokemon can grow these additional stalagmite horns as they continue to grow in size. All they need is a large enough cave to grow into, and who knows how jagged and fierce this Pokemon's horns can really become. Additionally, I made the end of its legs into stalactites since we're trying to max out the imagery while retaining visual clarity. One last thing about this Pokemon, its butt is hollow. Well, that's a gross way to say that. Its thorax is hollow. I think that's better. Anyways, it's a bug made of rocks who lives in a cave. It doesn't really have a purpose for wings and definitely doesn't need a shell to protect its wings. It just doesn't have them. That's why instead it has a hollow cavity where those wings were and where much of its thorax would have been that goes underneath the shell, and it's where they keep newly hatched Stagmite. There are even holes for Stagmite so that they can climb in and out easily, and the shell can even be opened like any other beetles in order to give its young a quick entrance and exit. In my mind, you would have one male and one female live in any given cave or section of a large enough cave, as they would want to protect their brood from competitors. They would take turns holding on to the brood in their thorax as the other went out in search of food for them, kind of like how penguins do it, only giant cave-dwelling beetles. Anyways, meet Slagmite, the brooding rock Pokemon. Slagmite are very caring parents and will carry Stagmites within their hollow thoraxes. They are known to be quite territorial though, especially when they have their young with them. Because of this, you will rarely find more than one mating pair of Slagmite in a given cave, as they will chase other Slagmite out of their territory. The holes in their shells allow Stagmite to come and go freely until they evolve into Stactite. Hey Ron, check this one out.
Yeah, and you are lucky that you don't have to do Sugimori style. You can just do what is natural for you. You don't have to like. That's the part of the process that I hate the most, where I just have to now mimic the Sugimori style.
I'm not sure what happened to Ron's video feed. I'll figure something out, guys. Don't worry about it. He's 100% here, and yeah, don't worry about it. Okay, next up, we're going to evolve our little friend Fortowel, which spends its days and nights swaddled in soft wings, seeing the dreams of other people and Pokemon around it. In evolving this Pokemon, I wanted to explore that particular concept further. As a basic Pokemon, it wouldn't have very much control over this ability, so I think the goal should be experimenting with a design that communicates this Pokemon gaining more of that control. Maybe not full control yet, but at least the ability to control which dreams it does or doesn't see. One thing you'll hopefully see is the prominent eye shape created above this Pokemon's head using the horned owl's feather tufts combined with a single feather that sits between them. This combined with the amulet-like structure on its chest are intended to show an increase in psychic ability, which is also this Pokemon's secondary typing. In my mind, it would travel from dream to dream on psychic wings, but the question remains, why would it do this? I like to think that a lot of lore within the Wentano region and its people's culture would exist. I mean, think about it. If you started seeing an owl Pokemon known for dream walking, just watching you in your dreams, what do you think it would be doing? In Wentano, it's either a really, really good thing or a really, really bad thing if this Pokemon is showing up in your dreams. Either way, it means you'll likely be making a name for yourself. I think this could have fun story implications for our region as well. Like, what if each time you, as the main character, slept, there was a dream sequence that played where this Pokemon would show up, but over time as you increase your game progress, it's not just one, but two, then three, then four, then a whole flock just watching your dreams unfold. Meet Vijowl, the Dreamwalker Pokemon. Vijowl often visit the dreams of people and Pokemon across the Wentano region, though they rarely hang around for very long. If you do spot them in your dreams, it's considered a strong omen, though good or bad is unclear. Vijowl will often watch the dreams of those they feel will make the biggest mark on the Wentano region, for better or worse. Their abilities are considered prophecy by many people who live there. Hey Ron, I'm just going to use this stand-in of you till we get your video working, but what do you think of Vijowl?
This is the highest compliment I can give, but he looks like a starter.
Guys, I thought you would like the avatar thing. We just haven't figured out how to get his video back. Stop asking questions, okay? Let's evolve little Vijowl into something much grander. We've gone from viewing dreams to being able to willingly visit them with greater control. I think the next step in this evolutionary chain should be a Pokemon who can now talk to the people of Wentano in their dreams, guide them, and maybe even manipulate these dreams. I think this Pokemon doesn't really have an assigned nature, where maybe some of them are conniving and trying to manipulate people for the worse, and you'll see that in our story videos, but maybe some of them are also Gandalf-type mentors who can herald a new age of prosperity for the Wentano region. In order to reach this type of status, I felt it was important to deviate from what we might call the standard biology of a horned owl, and you're going to see this in a few areas. This final stage Pokemon has almost godlike or at least demigod-like abilities, and it can have a massive sway on Wentano, so it shouldn't look normal. We're going to start from the head and work our way down, which means we're going to talk about the horns. It is now a literal horned owl with large brass protrusions from each side of its head. Between them sits a blood-red crystal ball, signifying its psychic prowess and power. These are more ornamental than anything and not meant for fighting, but they help to elevate this Pokemon beyond the normal. You'll also notice it has a long neck. While owls can definitely stretch and squash their necks to suit their needs, it's not typically to this extent. I've always loved the owl spirit of knowledge in Avatar: The Last Airbender. It has a form that, when angered, elongates its neck, kind of like this one, and to me, it makes this Pokemon seem otherworldly. 3 more blood red orbs are present across its belly, more jewelry, more power. Where Visual had 1 amulet, this Pokemon now has 4 instruments through which it can channel its psychic powers. The last feature I'm using to emphasize this Pokemon's fantastical nature will be the elongated tail feathers. This Pokemon needs to feel almost royal to exude the power that I want it to have. These kinds of flowing pieces really help to sell that aspect of this design for me. I'm particularly excited for the part of this Pokemon that really impacts the Wentano region and impacts our story. Where Visual may just watch over your dreams, I wonder who may be susceptible to this Pokemon in their dreams. Will they commit great evil, or will they be a force for good? I'm also excited for the part that you, as the protagonist, get to play in that relationship, and how you might respond to this Pokemon should it visit you. Meet Foulsight, the dream-talking Pokemon. Foulsight are incredibly rare in the Wentana region, as a Visual must amass great psychic ability in order to evolve. After evolving, their abilities within the dream world are greatly increased. Able to come and go freely, now they can even talk to those that they visit while dreaming. Many of Wentano's greatest heroes and villains have come about due to the whisperings of a Foulsight in their dreams. Should one visit you, it is a great omen that you may play a role in something truly terrible or grand. Okay, Ron, I think I got your camera working again.
They're clearly based on what they are based on. Honestly, this is a good example of progression. They're not like the same exact design, just grown up.
See, he's totally here, and that was his real opinion too, so it really could have been a special moment for me, but you guys are ruining it with your stupid questions. What do you mean the video feed looked weird? You're weird. Last but not least, we're going to take a look at the evolutions for Snippant. Snippant is the second bug-type Pokemon that you'll encounter along Route 1 in the Wentana region. It is intended to look like a young scorpion larva who is yet to fully harden, and it possesses a highly aggressive personality that it uses to make up for its squishy and weak form. That became the focal point for me in determining how this Pokemon would evolve. Its desire to be big and scary, or at least appear so. As a middle stage Pokemon though, it's still not big, so I need a way for it to counteract this and be able to appear scarier than it really is. I was reminded of the recall animation for the old Desert Sand Skarner skin in League of Legends, where Skarner impales the ground in front of him with his tail and then stands up on that tail, increasing his height dramatically. I didn't want to mimic this exactly, so I decided to create a design where this Pokemon would still stand on its tail, but while doing so, it would actually be upside down. That created an interesting design where I decided to use markings on this Pokemon to create the illusion of a big scary face. Even though when right side up, this Pokemon does have some pretty impressive fangs, it's more impressive to be upside down and have this big scary face because of the added size. Now, this Pokemon's exoskeleton has hardened into large claws, and it has a deadly stinger on its tail that it uses for both attacking and defending. The last thing that this Pokemon gains is a strong acid that it can both spit from its mouth and inject with its tail. I almost imagine that in order to spit its acid, it would stand up on its tail and sway back and forth to build momentum in order to increase the distance of its spit. It could also use this motion where it stabs into the ground and flips itself up in order to really fling its acid. This newfound ability becomes the basis for an added second typing of poison, which I've always thought was funny for including acids and really any dangerous substance that isn't an element, and hey, it works for me. Meet Invipion, the inverted scorpion Pokemon. Invipion are perfectly content staying upside down for extended periods of time. They will drive their stingers into the ground and lift their entire bodies into the air using their strong tails. The markings on their body make for a scary face while in this position, and they use this to make up for their small size and intimidate enemies. Invipion also possess a deadly acid that they can spit from their mouths as well as inject using the stingers on their tails. Truegreen, I'm getting some reports that your camera looked really weird in the last clip, so let's just go back to your stand-in.
Has a lot of mons where like there are hidden things that come out, or like when they attack, different parts of their body come out. This is what I love about the new generation of Pokemon, so I'm glad you did something like that.
Why are you guys being so rude to Truegreen right now? I can hear your little comments about whether he's actually here or not. You think he isn't cool or nice enough to appear in a smaller YouTuber's video? So judgmental. Like, Honestly, this is embarrassing to see happening in real time. Next, let's evolve Invipian once more. I really became enamored with the idea of this Pokemon spitting and launching acid as a weapon. I really wanted to expand on this when it evolved, and so I felt it appropriate to add some acid cannons to the claws and tail of my Pokemon. Sadly, I did not continue the theme of flipping the Pokemon upside down, and honestly, it's just because it's pretty big now. It's built like a tank. One of the difficulties in creating these acid cannons, though, was how to design them. I tried a lot of variants, and I had one goal in mind. Don't just make another Clawitzer. The cannons themselves needed to be a separate piece of the carapace for this to really be the case. In the end, I decided to make them look a little bit more technological to help set them apart. More specifically, the added window on the sides of the claws that lets you see the bright purple-pink acid inside, ready to be shot out at any given moment, makes sure that these claws don't resemble any cannons or claws of the other Pokemon with similar abilities. You'll also notice that the tail is transformed into another claw. I did this to help set it apart from other Pokemon that may have a similar body shape. And honestly, I feel like the claws themselves had a sharp enough tip that it could still have that stinger-like effect when impaling other people or Pokemon, which is kind of sad. Anyways, I imagine that on all three claws, this Pokemon could slowly leak out the acid from its cannons, and it would enhance its physical attacks as well. This Pokemon is bulky, slow, and focuses on making the attacks that it can land count. Meet Tresipian, the three-cannon Pokemon. Tresipian live in the harsh deserts of Wintano and are known for taking out targets at great distance using the powerful cannons on their claws and tail. Their deadly acid quickly dissolves even tough stone, which they can take advantage of when digging their burrows and dens. Should you encounter an angry Tresipian, there isn't much that can be done except hope it hasn't noticed you, and if it has, then run as quickly as you can, because speed is their primary weakness. And there you have it. That's all the Pokemon that we're going to evolve today. Oh, wait, just one sec, guys. I'm getting a phone call. Hey, Professor Sage. Wait, what? You're saying a new Pokemon? They discovered it how? Well, yeah, no wonder we didn't know it existed till now. Yeah, I'll pass it along immediately. Hey, guys, we have some crazy news. As you may have guessed, Invipian has a split evolutionary path. And while I don't want to spoil too much right up front, it has a lot to do with the ancient ancestors of scorpions. Well, kinda. Let's start with where this is coming from. When I made Invipian, I made it shiny blue, just for fun. I didn't think much of it. But then it got me thinking about the giant underwater scorpion-like arthropods that lived long, long ago when there wasn't even life on land yet. I hadn't considered, making this into a water-type Pokemon, but immediately my thoughts went to diverting entirely from my evolutionary plan and making a water scorpion instead. I really liked that idea, but I also really liked my initial idea for Tresipian, and so I felt like a split evolution would be the best route. Additionally, it allowed me to play more off of the inverted idea that came with Invipian being upside down. I told you I was moving away from that. It was a lie. What if these were two Pokemon, Tresipian and this new evolution, that were nearly identical, but the major difference was that their body plans were flipped? The main difference was that while one Pokemon has cannons in Tresipian, this Pokemon has jets. It can control the speed and flow of water through them in order to move around at high speeds underwater. Where Tresipian is slow, but often focuses on high defense and special attack, this Pokemon instead has a high speed and high attack stat that it gains. These Pokemon are intended to truly be the inverted versions of each other. One shoots forward, the other backward. One is on land, the other is on water. Their bodies are nearly identical except for the fact that they're flipped. I did try to add other elements from underwater arthropods into this design as well. You'll notice that where once Tresipian had horn fang type mouth parts, this Pokemon now has elongated antennae, like you would see in a crayfish. I also changed the shape of the legs to be more crustacean-like, and overall really tried to emphasize the differences between these two Pokemon. Again, I had to be careful not to emulate Clawitzer too much here, so I opted for a more unique color scheme, I guess. This is meant to really embody the different coloration you can get in a crayfish. Some are more blue, others more red, some are brown. Meet Traquinaut, the 3-jet Pokemon. I recently discovered Pokemon. Its method of evolution is still being studied by Pokemon researchers. They believe that Traquinaut is actually quite an ancient Pokemon, and that Snippet are among its descendants. Something about rigorous training at this ancient Pokemon's home seems to have activated Invipian's genetics, bringing this form into the world once more. Okay, Ron, let me show you the split evolutions for Invipian. these are the last ones you're gonna get, so be honest with me.
That is one thing I'm confident. Unless it was the final boss legendary of the entire franchise, just the Lord of the Sea, the Water Arceus, Pokemon would never do that.
Wait, oh crap. How did that slip in? That was supposed to be... Anyways, you guys, I think he just said the wrong thing there on accident. So we're gonna move on. Thank you to everyone who has taken the time today to watch my silly video about my silly made-up Pokemon and honestly hang on through my shenanigans. I also want to give a massive shout out to Truegreen7. I did message him about this bit that I wanted to do throughout the video, and he gave me the green light for it and let me use the clips and audio that I wanted to. It was very nice of him, and he didn't have to do that. So if you aren't already subscribed to his channel, I would highly recommend it. There's a link in the description below, and he makes fantastic content and is a great model for how to draw and create Pokemon in the official Pokemon art style. Anyways, thank you all again. You really are amazing, as dumb as the title of this video is, and I do mean that from the bottom of my heart. Until next week, go create something awesome for yourself.